Hello and welcome to another Cuz Bad Guys tactical breakdown. Today we're going to go through and do Damian Wayne. So Damian Wayne, this model is, I believe it's from the new 52. It totally looks like him. I really love the Bat family more so than Batman. And Damian Wayne, this is the little firecracker that's in the crew. He's always really edgy and talks back, but then can still take orders from Batman and does really well as being a Robin. So let's go ahead and go right on into his character card. So his name is Damian Wayne and his alias is Robin. He is a free agent for the Batman crew, so can only be taken in a Batman crew. His weapons are Batlings, which are 2 stun, rate of fire 2, ammo 2, throwing, so when he moves he doesn't lose rate of fire, and they damage on his strength, which is going to be a 4+. They are also short range, so at 20 centimeters. Batlings, these are pretty normal for the Batman crew. Almost everybody has these or some version of these. They're pretty useful, and using them in succession with like 3 or 4 characters can do a ton of damage to a crew in the opening turns of the game. So let's go on to his stats. So he is willpower 5, which is a little low, but for his point cost it's okay. If it was 1 higher he would be a little better, but 5 is pretty good. He is strength 4+, which is pretty awesome for his point cost. It makes him really effective. He is movement 3, attack 4, defense 4, and endurance 5. So movement 3 is pretty good. It's average, and with his point cost, it's pretty good. Attack and defense 4 means people are only going to be blocking or hitting him on a 50% chance, which is pretty good for his point cost. Not bad. And then endurance 5. So endurance 5 is kind of weak. It's on the lower scale. But you got to remember that this is also like a 12-year-old. So for a 12-year-old to have stats like this when regular civilians are like defense 2 with 2 endurance, this is pretty awesome. Like I said, he's a little firecracker and he plays that way on the board. So let's go on to his personal traits. So his first personal trait is going to be martial artist. Martial artist means that he doesn't suffer from being outnumbered in close combat. So if there are multiple people that come into base with him, his defense doesn't get lowered, which is awesome. His next personal trait is going to be acrobat. So acrobat is awesome on him because it gives him movement 12, and it actually overrides the movement for another one of his personal traits, which is small. Small, normally you lose movement, so you go to movement 8, but acrobat overrides it. Acrobat also makes it so he can ignore terrain and stuff. He can jump over cars, he can jump over people, and then he also gets dodge, so he can dodge bullets and stuff, which is awesome. Let's go on to small, that I've already talked about just a little bit. So he doesn't suffer the movement penalty for being small, but then he gets the bonus for being behind cover. So if he's ever behind a car or up on top of a building and somebody tries to shoot at him, he gets a plus to his ping. So being behind a car, it goes from a 4+ to a 3+. If he spends a movement and does cover, he gets a +1 to that. So that means behind a car, this guy gets a 2+ cover save, which is awesome. His next personal trait is going to be Bat Claw, which is pretty standard for most of the Bat family. It's spend a move in a special, and you can move 30 centimeters, but you have to do a vertical change, so you can't just move along the ground at 30 centimeters. You have to go like on top of a car or on top of a building or something like that to be able to use the Bat Claw. His next personal trait is going to be True Love, Talia al Ghul, and Batman. So both of those are his parents, Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul. They can both be taken in crews with him, and if they die, he gets +1 to his attack and +1 willpower. So he gets pissed off if one of those go down. If both of them go down, they stack. There's no rule saying that it doesn't stack. So if both Talia and Batman go down, which is going to be bad, like you're going to be losing your game if both of those characters go down, but it does make Damian Wayne better. So he would go to attack 6 and willpower 7, but you don't want that to happen. His next personal trait is going to be detective, which is pretty common in the Batman crew, and you actually want that in the Batman crew because detective makes it so you can negate a pass that your opponent has, and it also lets you re-roll for riddle markers. So pretty useful thing, pretty useful tool that the Batman crew needs and wants to take. His next personal trait is going to be Master Fighter, which is awesome on him. So Master Fighter is +1 to hit in close combat as long as you're unarmed, which Damian Wayne is unarmed. He's just doing the regular punches, but he gets +1 to hit people. So if he goes after like any of the higher end henchmen that are defense 3, he's hitting them on 2s. Master Fighter on him is really good. And then his last personal trait is going to be technique. Technique, I thought was kind of crappy, but then as I've played this guy more and more, technique I actually use quite often. So technique is you spend 1 special before you attack, and as long as you hit somebody and do damage, they're automatically knocked down. And automatically knocked down is really good for follow-up attacks. On top of that, if you do roll a double, which would normally be a knockdown, you get an extra strength 4 hit against them because you're like slamming them into the ground. Like I said, technique, I thought it was going to be kind of stupid, but then in games when I played with Damian Wayne and used this, he can actually push out quite a bit of damage for only having 5 willpower. It's pretty good. So let's go on to his reputation, cost, and funding. So his reputation is 50 points, and then funding is $0, which is awesome because he does have a ranged weapon. So getting that for free is awesome. And then only 50 points for this kid is pretty much a steal. You've got to remember that he's not some powerhouse like Deathstroke or Batman, so he can't like run up to a crew and just take them on single-handedly. He can take on henchmen by himself pretty easily. With like 2 turns of combat, he can usually take them out because he'll knock them down and then just beat the crap out of them while they're on the ground. But you don't want to send him after higher-end guys. He can be a nuisance for higher-end guys and just slip in and out of being in combat, but you want to keep him out of situations like that. So let's go over what I think his strengths and weaknesses are. So his strengths is that he's only 50 points, and you get some pretty good stats for 50 points. The strengths, the way that I use this guy on the tabletop is I'll actually capitalize on his technique, and I'll run in with Batclaw or jump over a car or something and hit somebody and just put 2 attacks on him and spend that extra special for technique and try to knock them down. And doing that to guys like Deathstroke or to Batmans or to Banes, like any of those guys, if you get that off and you knock them down, their defense is going to drop to 2. So you can have a follow-up attacker like Red Hood or Nightwing or Batman, have them come in and hit them while they're down, and then it's like a guaranteed you're going to knock out whoever you just knocked down. Using this as the first of a 1-2 punch, he's really, really good at. The other thing that I use him for is as the character to go turn on the bat signal. So he just does a beeline for the bat signal, gets there, turns it on. If anybody is trying to guard it, usually it's just a henchman, and Damian Wayne can take them on. Comboing with his detective so you can cancel out their passes. It's really good. You usually activate him last in a Batman crew if you're not taking like the Flash or one of those characters, but you activate Damian Wayne last and then turn on that bat signal. It's really effective. And then after that, you use him as the first of the 1-2 punch to take out big characters. So weaknesses is he does only have 5 endurance. So as soon as he starts taking damage, he's gonna start losing willpower really quick, and he'll go down really fast. If somebody like Deathstroke or Batman like goes after him, you've got to be careful with him only having 5 endurance. Other than that, great character, really worth his points, tons of fun. Like, the thing I love about this game is that everybody is super fluffy. They always follow the way that they would be in the comic books or the video games. Like, really, really fun. And I love playing with the Bat family. So let's go on to the paint job that I have for this guy. So here's my Damian Wayne. I really like the way his costume came out outside of his cape. I have such a hard time painting yellow, but I really like his greens and grays and his red. But I think I'm going to have one of my buddies try to fix up his cape just a bit. But other than that, I really like the way he's come out. I like how I got his R on his chest and his belt buckle. It looks really good. Fully painted miniatures on the tabletop, it's just a ton of fun. Like, reliving comics and stuff like that, it's a blast. So that's it for my tactical take on Damian Wayne. And remember, cause bad guys.